Good morning, everyone. My name is Annie Fink, and I am the Marketing Coordinator for Wonderware California. Thank you for attending our Learn in 30 webinar today, focused on developing and testing in the cloud with Integration Studio. After the webinar this morning, we will be doing a short Q&A. Please type any questions or comments into the Q&A box, the chat box, or you can email us at webinar@california.wonderware.com. Now I'd like to introduce your presenter for today's webinar, Brian Leonard. Brian is an automation industry expert and is the AVEVA product manager for Integration Studio. He has been with AVEVA for 17 years and began his career as a system integrator. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Annie. Thank you very much for that. Welcome, everybody. Good morning or afternoon or whatever you are, probably mostly California, I'd imagine. I am here at home, like I'm sure most of you or quite a lot of you are. Please excuse the background here. It is my home office. Just so you know, this is not my actual office that I've got at work, but welcome. In this topic or in this webinar, which I thank you for joining, we're going to discuss Integration Studio, which you probably already have access to if you own a development license that's on support. So to start this off, I'm going to kind of go over some of the hurdles that some people have. Also, this is just even with non-pandemic hurdles that people may have in life. And that's doing things like setting up your demos as an SI or an end user or a distributor even. How do you set up demos for customers to be able to take a look at, or for training and things of that nature? Actually, let me make it sort of a little bit more safer for work here, just to kind of for the sensitive people out there. But doing things like training your staff, training your users. If you're an SI, you want to train your users how to use the system that you've implemented. How do you have a safe environment to do that? That takes the risks out of them actually tinkering with a live system. How can you go about doing that? The cloud is one way to get that going. Also, setting up your proof of concepts for sales, things of that nature. How do you go in and create a proof of concept? You can go into a customer, show them off what you can do, how you can give them some solutions for their problems. Also, project management, the versions of the software that you have installed on a customer's site. How do you set those up, and how do you keep that in a safe environment that you can go back to support them when they need support? Or as an end customer, how do you have that as a sandbox environment to do your testing and things of that nature? And application management. How do you set up your different application versions really easily in the cloud? And this is one way to do that for you. But there are different hurdles that you have to overcome in order to just do your daily job and have a good factory or environment. And no big surprise, Integration Studio is one of those solutions that can do most of the applications that we talked about. In this lifecycle project we have right here, this goes over the initial bid, proof of concept, etc., that I mentioned earlier, setting up the proof of concepts and things of that nature. It's really easy to do that with Integration Studio because you can set up your infrastructure in the cloud. All the way from defining, you can get that going. You can start this process of, once you get that project, to start implementing it really easily without having to purchase any hardware. You can go in and you can modify your infrastructure. Maybe you need to add a node or remove a node. Maybe you just need to wipe it out and start over again and take your application and start up a new environment. It's really easy to do that within Integration Studio. And once it's been done and you can start to implement it and deploy it, you can buy that hardware later. So you can take advantage of your warranty periods for your actual servers that they need to be installed in the field, or panels or whatever that need to be implemented out in the field. And once you've implemented them and actually the implementation is something that we've said that Integration Studio is really designed for a development environment. We are seeing some people trying to use this as a production environment for remote sites and things of that nature that don't need to necessarily have a server on site. But it's mainly designed for developing and testing and things of that nature, but it can be used as a production environment. We're just starting to see people adopt cloud for their production, and it's more of a gradual phase. I think we're just kind of getting used to it. Also, things like drivers and things of that nature, MQTT and things of that nature are really designed for use in the cloud, and we're just starting to implement those things as well. But you can also continue this cycle. After you've done your implementation and installed it, you can keep going. You can keep supporting your application. You can use it as a sandbox environment. You want to do some testing and things of that nature. You can do that in the cloud, free from your production environments. So it's really great for things like that. Or training your new staff that comes in. Let's say you get a new engineer, a new technician that needs to come in and they want to do some testing, or they want to, just train them with their, their Wonderware applications. You can have them do that in the cloud without having to worry about actually implementing any sort of things. You can isolate them completely. So how does that work from an organization standpoint? How do you go about using it, or gain access to it? Well, as I mentioned, you have access to it with a development license. So if you have a development license on support, you will get a seat. So a seat sort of functions like, let's say you have a table and you want, let's say, 3 people to work on it at any given time, then you can have 3 seats, which would mean you'd have 3 development licenses because the seats come with your development license. You could have as many users as you want in that room, but the 3 people that are sitting at those seats can start using the software and start developing with it. If you want to, you can set up your personal projects, shared projects. You can do all these things. You can create them as long as you've been assigned to a seat. You can then be removed from a seat, and then you can have somebody else come in and take your place. This can all be done with local management, with local admins within the account. They would just assign and reassign seats dynamically. And so this guy comes in, he's super excited about working, as I was before I was this shell of a man you see before you today. But once he's in, now he can start developing his personal and public projects within this tenant or this account. The one important thing to note that the person who just got removed or unassigned from a seat, their personal projects and everything that they've created and their sessions and everything are all still there. They're just possibly hidden from view because if it's personal, then maybe someone else can't see it. But once they get reassigned back to a seat, they can go in and start working from the ground up. It doesn't remove them or remove their work that they've been working on just because they've been assigned to a seat. And you can also be a member of multiple accounts. Let's say in the top example there, that SI who's really, really excited. He has an end customer, possibly, he started that cycle and won the proof of concept, and he's now been assigned to a seat that an end customer has. So in this example, let's say this end customer says, well, I've got some sites and I have a couple development licenses because I like to do work, or I like to maintain that work. And so I've got my own local staff, but I want to invite this SI to work on this particular project that I want to get started. So they just assign him to the seat, or assign him to the seat in their account, and he can go in and he can start working their public, working their projects. They may have their own set of standards that they've created, and they want him to use those as a starting off point. So they can say, okay, there's this public standard that we've created. Now go ahead and use that as a starting off point, and then when you create a new one, make that private so only you can have access to it, and we do because we're administrators, so we can have access to it as well. But you can go in and start creating your application and do the work that we paid you to do within our account, and we can keep an eye on it. We can go in and we can see how much work is being done. We can collaborate together. We can invite each other, or if you're working on it, you can invite me to join it, and I can follow along if you have any questions, and we can work collaboratively within this account that we've got. They can also do this for multiple SIs. I said they have multiple projects, and then maybe the SIs don't necessarily are part of the same organization. Maybe they have multiple sites or multiple locations within their particular site. They can keep them separate because they can make each project or each session that they created personal to their own particular user or their own particular seat, and they wouldn't be able to interact with each other. Or they could, if you wanted to. They can make them public, and they can all have access to each other's applications. It's really dynamic in that sense. So with that, we'll do a demo. Let me get this going here. Now this is a live demo. So of course something's going to go wrong. Let's just throw that out there. I'm just going to let the universe know that it's live, so it's not going to go well. But let's go for it anyway. I mean, it's early. You got nothing else to do anyway. So here we've created. I've got my account here. And I didn't bother you with the login process because we've all logged into a site before. But once I've logged in and I've created my account, I am presented with my various projects that I've already created. If you've got nothing in here, then it'll be blank. But you want to create a new one, we'll click this big pink Add Project button here. And we're going to go through this process here. So this is the timeline. Is that very many steps? So we'll go in and give it a name. We'll call it, and so for this is going to be part of a project template. A project is really a template saying, okay, I'm going to have this many nodes. This is what each node is going to have installed on it, and it's going to have a set of parameters that are going to be saved. So when I actually create the VMs, it'll use this as the guidelines. So with this, I'm going to give this, let's say, my reference node. So this is going to be a 2017 update 3 node system. Okay. I can give it a description if I want, but we don't really need to see me type, and it's not a mandatory field, so that goes out the window for now. System suite definition. So system suites. What is a system suite? So it's really a suite of applications at a particular version that will be installed on each machine. Okay. So in this example, or in the oldest ones, I can go back to Orchestra System Platform 2012 patch 1. So let's say I have an application out there and it's an older version, and I'm going to say I want to support this customer. You know what? I don't have that version on me right now. I don't really feel like downloading it and installing it on some new VMs. I'm just going to go in here, create the infrastructure, get everything set up and installed automatically so I can go in and start working on it. So there's that. I can go up to the latest version. Let's say there's the latest version that comes out. Right now it's 2017 Update 3 SP1. 2020 will be available very soon, and it will be available in here as well. I think it's pretty much right coinciding with the launch date of the actual software, but it'll be available here for you to try out. If you want to test out an upgrade process, let's say I've got maybe a 2014 R2 application, and I want to see what that upgrade process is going to be like. Well, I could go in and have it create this, the latest version, 2020, and then migrate my application over and see what that migration is like. Really easy to do without having to install any software. For now, I'll just pick this latest version here. And then I select the default hosting region. Now, this is just the data center that the VMs are going to reside in. I could change this when I actually create them. To be honest with you, the way that we're using Azure, a lot of stuff is replicated overall, the data centers. So the performance necessarily isn't a huge difference between data center to data center. But we have the ability to do a test when you create them, just to see what your process, your bandwidth is like. But for now, we'll select the West US because that's where I'm at. And then we'll go to the node configuration. This is where we're going to configure the nodes. Oh, shocking, right? It's kind of weird how that worked out. But we're going to say how many nodes we want in this project, and the performance of each node, and the names of them. So this one, we'll start off with node 1. Let's just say I'm going to call that my GR node, like that. And this is going to be my high performance machine. Okay, so you'll notice here we have two different options here. I think we plan on offering a few more just to give people some more abilities with a number of cores and things of that nature. For now, I want this one to be the DS3V2, and you click this little I here and you go to see how many cores and how much RAM is available within that machine. You also see the cost here. You see, we basically charge per core per hour. So the amount of cores you have, and the more cores and RAM you're consuming, the more the machine will be charged per hour. And it's just a meter that is running. And this is the only thing that would charge on. So we don't necessarily charge on the storage or just access for it, because again, you gain access to Integration Studio with your dev license. We're just charging the hourly rate of each machine for them running. Okay. Key is that charge per hour for them running. Okay. So this is, we have this here. You notice the lower end machine, this is the 2-core machine. It's basically half the rate as the 4-core machine. For my purposes, I like to have the higher end one be the GR. If I want to add another one, click add another node. I'll give this one, this will maybe be my runtime node. Time spelled correctly. Maybe that one doesn't necessarily need to be quite as powerful, so I'll lower that one. So I'll save some money there when it's running. And then I'll click another one here. This will be my historian node. And I like this one to be pretty beefy too, so I'll do that. Submit there, and then we'll see, okay, this is how much to be charged per hour. If there are running, in a 40-hour week, this is how much it would cost there. I'll go to next, and then we select the launch parameters. So what will happen when this machine launches for the first time? What is each machine going to be configured as? The GR node, obviously, this is going to be my development server. Whether I'm running InTouch or System Platform, it'll have the development tools installed on there. I'm also just going to say, I'm just going to put everything on there. Because if I'm testing this, I want to just do a really quick test. I would just deploy locally to the VM and do my test that way. And then if I want to do a full-blown test with the 3 nodes, then I would deploy it to all 3 of them. But to just do a quick test, I would just have everything installed in the one. This is just a little pro tip there. And then my runtime node, I'll just make this one my runtime client, and my historian server, I'll just make this a runtime client and an historian server. There. Click next. And because I mentioned earlier, back maybe a minute or two ago, that we charge per hour per core per hour. If you accidentally leave your machines running, which I do constantly, and all of my coworkers that use my account do constantly, you can just have some unexpected charges. So what we did is that we built an automatic shutdown scheduler into the system. By default, it's turned off. But if you'd like to have them automatically shut off, you could say, okay, well, I could do it based off the duration. So let's say if I'm going to turn on a machine, then after 4 hours, just shut it off. Because if it's going to be a really quick test, everything I do is going to be relatively quick. Shut them off after 4 hours. Or if I'm using this for training purposes, if I do a lot of training within my organization, then duration based is really good for things like that. Or shut down by time of day, which is what I typically use. So let's say I'm going to put it at, let's say 4:30. I'm going to work really, really late that day and set it for 4:30 p.m. not a.m. I'm not that crazy. It's a big late day there. So we'll do 4:30. And then now on this last section, we can say whether or not it's a public or private application. So let's just say we'll make this public. I'll give everybody within my organization. This is public to within this account, not within the world. It's just within this account here. And that's pretty much it. This is an overview of what I've got, the name I've got set up for it, each machine here. And then I'm going to click Create Project. I've already got one done, so I'm just going to click Cancel here. And I go back, and this is relatively simple, similar to the one that I've created before. And to create them, I would go in and select this little button here and click New Session. You'll see the New Session dialog pops up and says, "Okay, well, you got your new session. This is the project that you've set up, and this is the things that you've selected. I can give it have it send me an email once everything's done, just to kind of update me when it's ready. I could select the region. This is overwrite what I've already selected. If I want to, I can go in and say, go to here, and it's going to do a network speed test. And of course, it's a live demo, so this is going to take forever. Everybody loves a good progress bar during a demo. There's nothing better than a progress bar in a demo. So we'll do this. It's going to just ping all the different data centers and come back with a result. You guys can see how good my internet connection is here. Okay, well, there we are. So I was a liar, basically. I said everything was relatively similar, but you can see here the West US is a lot faster. One thing to note, we have noticed a bit of a higher latency actually with our European servers due to the fact that the much, much higher demand for cloud usage right now due to a lot of people working from home. So this is probably due to that. But I would be able to select on here. But you actually notice the North Europe and Southeast Asia are very similar. So I think I'm just really close to this one now, so it's pretty good. Anyway, so I'll select that one here. I can give it a name that makes sense. So now for this one, I would say, let's say, so the project I've got is, by default, it's a 2017 Update 3 SP1, that's a mouthful, system suite. But in this instance, this set of the VMs, this would be like the little test I'm going to do, or maybe a long-term solution. So I would say, okay, this is going to be my, meter skid application. This is where these 3 nodes are going to be out on that sys. That maybe skid is a little bit of overkill or 3 nodes is overkill for a skid. But anyway, this is what I would got for the actual instance over that there would be installed. This is the metering facility. So this is an actual name for the virtual machines that would be out there, or the session that are going to be created. This is the things that I've selected within my project template. I can overwrite these if I want. I could say, well, I want this to be an all-in-one, actually. So I'm going to do some minor changes. Well, on this not the historian one, let's say the runtime one, I want that to also be a remote development workstation too, because I want to be able to link them together eventually. So we'll do that, and then I'll click Launch Session. What that'll do is that'll start the process of creating the virtual machines. and installing the software dynamically, and let me know when I'm done or when they're done because I put my email address in there. But in an effort to save time and resources, I'm just going to go back to my projects and use this one that I've already created. This is the 3-node system. I can go into the details here, and I can see these are the 3 nodes that I've got. I've started them all up already. They take a few minutes to start up, so I've pre-started them up for us here. I can go in and stop them if I want to individually, or I can go back to the main window and I can start them all up, or shut them all down if I want to, or delete them all if I want to. I can edit the session if I want to as well. Let's say that the shutdown scheduler was not set or was set for a particular time. I can go in and change that so they can go and all take effect there. One thing to note here, in order to make these changes, the VMs need to be running. So just kind of another little pro tip. I need like a little icon now of like a pro tip. But yeah, it's my budget I've got. I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to do that now. But anyway, I could change the owner of the machines if I want to as well. I could set whether it's public or private from here as well. For now, I just started them up and I want to just connect to them. So that's kind of the whole point, is how do we connect to these virtual machines? So in order to do that, I click my little button here, and these are the 3 nodes that are running that I've selected or that I've made. Let's see my GR node. I click that one here. I've got a couple different options here. I can either connect via the browser. So if I want to go in, let's say, well, actually, initially we had default set to RDP, and that's sort of the old school version that we've had. This is RDP like you would use for terminal services or etc. But we're just going to make the connection to the cloud machine. If you want to do that, that's kind of the most, like the classic way of doing it. So in order to do RDP, I would click that, and let's see here. That should bring up this window here. And what this will do is it'll give me the credentials of the virtual machine. These are all randomly generated usernames and password for security purposes to give you that password there. So I'll just copy this password here. Then I'm going to download the RDP file. And click, notice that it downloaded down here. So I'm going to open it up. It's going to say, give me some stuff here. And I'm going to connect it that way. It says enter the password that I just put in, paste that there. Ask me for security certificates if I want to accept them. Yep. And now I'm going to connect to it. I was already connected with the Thinfinity or the browser connection, and now I've just overridden it, and now I'm connected to the RDP session. So you'll see here now this is the session that is in the cloud. I can start developing my application and start working away. And you see the 3 machines are actually connected in the network over here. If I want to transfer files, that's one common question, is how do I go about taking my application that I've got on premise and bring it to the cloud? Well, it's real simple. One thing way you could do it is just do a simple copy paste. So I'm going to minimize this really quickly, and then I'm going to go back to my local node. And let's say I've got I'm going to do my downloads here, and I've got some sample files. So I'm just going to, so this is now my host machine that I've got. For clarification purposes, this is the one I was on before with logging in here. And now I'm going to copy a sample file here, and then I'm going to go to my RDP session here, and I'm just going to paste it. So let's say I've got, maximize this a little bit, and I'm going to go to my documents folder, and I'm just going to go and paste it here. Simple copy paste, real easy for that. And this is just RDP stuff. This can be a little bit problematic if you have really, really large files. There's not really an interface that goes through whether or not letting you pause or stop or retry this file transfers. For that, what we do is recommend using some sort of cloud-based drive, like OneDrive or things of that nature, where you could just send it up to the cloud, store it there, and then within this virtual machine, also go in the cloud and download that file that way. Another possibility is, well, what if I want to download the latest version? Let's say I want to see what the upgrade process of a VM is like. Let's say I've got a 2014 system out there. I'm going to see what it's going to be like if I want to simply upgrade the machine itself with a new version on it. So with that, I could just take a 2014 machine, and then within the VM, go connect to the GCS site to download the files, and then assess what that upgrade process is like from there. So that's sort of another use case for this application here. Another thing I could do, let's say I didn't want to connect via RDP, or in situations that we found, even in our own offices in Lake Forest, the IT infrastructures block a lot of the RDP ports that we've got. So in those situations, we can't connect via RDP. And this can be a real situation that you have from a customer side. Let's say if you're an SI, you may have control of your IT infrastructure, or maybe working from home or whatever. And then you go to a customer site, and now you're bound to their IT requirements and policies. And those may be blocked, which they honestly usually are. So to do that, you would just, or to remedy that situation, we had the ability to connect via a browser session. So what we do is we have another option here, and you can connect via the browser session here. And what that'll do is that'll create a new session. I think I've already got one going. So I'm going to have to get rid of that one. And now I'm making the connection via the browser. It's not quite the same. It's very close, but at least it gets you connected. And if you can connect to Integration Studio, you can connect to this session that way. So it's made that real easy. The file transfers are a little bit different. You can't just do a simple copy paste. You can just do a drag and drop though, but it does behave a little bit differently. And this is another little pro tip. I'm gonna have my own little icon. Bing, pro tip. So let's say I want to copy another file over. I've got my sample file here. This is again on my host session. So I'm going to do copy this one here. Actually, no, I'm going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to do a drag and drop. So I'm going to go here. This is my host file explorer here. I got my sample file, and I'm just going to drag it over. Let's just say to the desktop of the browser session, and it says upload complete. Awesome. It was a really small file, but if you notice on the top right-hand corner, there was a progress meter there. This is a real simple empty text document, so it was really super snappy. But if there's a bigger file, it would show up on that top section there. But where did it go? And see, it was not on the desktop, which is where I copied it. Where did it go? Another little pro tip: it actually creates a map to network drive on the machine. So if you go to this PC here, you'll see that, of course, it has the floppy drive, because why else would you have to have a floppy drive? But you have your local disk here, which is your C drive, and then you got some temporary storage. And this is exactly what it says. It'll get deleted when the machine restarts, but it's available for you to have a temporary storage there. And then we have this map to network drive. This is the file transfer drive. So when you see that I copied that over just with a drag, well, it put the file in this folder here, or this drive. You can do it that way. And then from here, this is also temporary as well. So if I wanted to save that, I would just copy this, and I would say cut it or copy it, and then I would put it in my documents folder, and I'd put it there. You see my sample file one was already there. So that was just doing drag and drop. If you notice here at the top of the screen, there is a little, let me see if I can get to it. Here we are, a little drop-down menu, or a little option there. So this is within the browser session. It has some different options here. You could do the file transfer, which does the same thing. What this will do is it'll set up a file manager, and it'll set a link between your folder on your host machine and the map network drive on the VM. And so it'll just maintain a sync between them if you want it to. That's an option there. Another really cool option that we have for the browser session is the ability to share the session. Share the session. Yes, I could say that very clearly. So what this will do, it'll give me a link, an address, and a password. And I can give this to somebody else, and they can connect to this remote session as well. So I can collaborate really easily using the same session, having multiple people get on there if I want to. I've tested this up to 3 people getting on at one point, and it just works flawlessly. Obviously, each person can have their own control, so you want to keep an eye on that. But you just want to, it's really great for collaborating. You want to, I guess, have somebody come in and join you real quickly. Of course, you could do something like a Zoom meeting or WebEx or whatever, but this is built in here with this functionality to be able to let people manage that as well. And that password changes after every, I think it's 10 minutes or something like that, if it's an activity. So those passwords are secure in that sense. So there's that. So now we will go back to the host session here, and One thing I'll also go over is how do I go about inviting users to it? Okay, so let's say I'm almost running out of time here. I want to add more users to it. Click here, and I would just invite my users this way. And I want to let's see here. So these are all the users that I've got on my machine. You notice that was on the far left side. Now let's say I want to go in and assign them a seat. I click here and go to seat management. And then I would just invite my seats that way. So I would assign a seat to all the different users that I've got there as well. I think that about does it for my demo. Let me go back to this presentation. Some of the things that we're going to be adding really quickly are standards management. This is going to have the ability to store your standards directly from your development environment on premise to Integration Studio. So like a file storage built into Integration Studio that way. Also edge management. That's going to be a new feature that we're going to be adding that's going to be able to deploy completely enclosed containers that all have the software and necessary OS components all wrapped up into one package. You develop on premise, store those things in the cloud, and they get pushed down to your edge devices. So you never have to install anything on your edge devices other than a little tiny kernel that goes on there, and everything is updated and maintained that way. Custom system suite templates. This is going to be a big feature for Integration Studio, which I've really been looking forward to implementing. It's going to give people the ability to create their custom system suites. Now, you notice on the system suite that I had, it was this particular version, let's say 2017 or whatever, 2020 when they come out. This is going to give you the ability to create your own. So you go in, create a session, put everything you want on the VMs, get them ready, set up, put users on them if you want to, and then you can capture that system suite and capture that session and make that a system suite. So let's say you want to replicate that over and over again. That's really going to bring standards management to a whole new level and make things really a lot more usable. We're also going to add a PLC emulator within the system. So if you want to connect, instead of connecting to a local premise PLC, you can have the PLC emulator go in. You can take your applications with your PLC applications, upload to that, and then connect to the device that way to see what the interaction is like with your PLC. We're also going to be updating our system suites to include, again, 2020. We're going to add Cytek SCADA to Integration Studio as well as AVEVA Edge. So you'll be able to make those versions there as well. This is just a little quick overview of what I talked about, having this edge management. Again, edge management capabilities, things like that. So I apologize, I'm going a little bit over time. Hopefully nobody's late for another meeting. But that about wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to chime in. Otherwise, thanks for attending. My name is Brian Leonard. You can reach me here at Brian Leonard or brian.leonard@aveva.com, or reach out to your local salesperson in Wonderwork, California. I'm sure they'd be able to help you out.
And then, Brian, we did have a few questions come in.
Okay.
Our first one is, when dealing with cloud infrastructure, security is a big concern. What security implementations has Integration Studio put in place to keep customers safe?
Oh, good question. So security, obviously, yes, security is always a big deal with cloud infrastructures. It's a big deal anyway. So what we do is that we've actually enabled end-to-end encryption with our VMs and our infrastructures here. There is encryption in transit, as well as we have a BitLocker enabled, or not enabled, the ability to be enabled on the VMs themselves. So you can have in-transit encryption as well as data at rest encryption.
Perfect. And then we have another one. What operating systems and versions of SQL Server are installed on each type of node?
Another good question. So we have the various versions that are installed on there. You notice there was not really a selection. So what we've done is that when we've created the system suites, we've created them with the version of OS and SQL Server that I guess was tested and was released when the software was released. So whether it's, and actually what we do is we have an FAQ section within Integration Studio, a help section that has a list and a matrix of all the different pieces and parts, all the details of what gets installed on each one as well within Integration Studio.
Perfect. And then our last one, if I have a Flex subscription, can I use those credits within Integration Studio?
Flex. So this is if you're not familiar with what Flex subscriptions are, it's basically our new subscription model. So basically, you subscribe to this program, and you are allocated a certain amount of Flex credits, and you can use them however you want. So if you want to have InTouch nodes, or you want to have Edge, or System Platform, or whatever, you would just assign your Flex credits to those applications, and then you can use them that way. It gives you an opportunity to try new things without having to actually make a big purchase and dedicate, mass amounts of resources to buy it. You could just try it out for a little while. Integration Studio is one of those things. So you can take those Flex credits, apply them towards Integration Studio credits, and use them that way. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Brian, and thank you to everyone who attended. If anyone would like to review any portion of this webinar, a recording will be available on YouTube and our website, california.wonderware.com, in the near future, and you will be receiving a copy of it once it becomes available. Thank you again for attending, and have a great day.